This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so let's go to Parshat Korach. That's on page 820. Those who are following in the stone Chumash. Otherwise, if you just have a regular Chumash, we're in Bamidbar, of course, chapter Tet Zayin 16, the very beginning, Pasuk Aleph, the first pasuk, the first verse in Perek Tet Zayin, chapter 16, page 820 in our stone Chumash. And once again, as we've been discussing, what's happening at this point is things are going very south, right? We reached that midpoint in the middle of Halotcha, the Vayhi ben Sa'aron of Nucha Yomar, those two psukim that was set off by the backward nuns. Those were parsha in and of itself. Until that point, everything was going smoothly. We were in formation. We were in lane. We were aligned with God. Al pi Hashem yachanu, al pi Hashem yisau. When God says to camp, we camp. God says to travel, we travel. Understanding that everything that's coming our way is being divinely orchestrated. And then we start with the complaints. It started with our want to run from Har Sinai, from Mount Sinai, right? 613 mitzvot is enough. We stick around, we might get some more. Time to get out of there, right? And then it was complaints about this, food, water, right? On and on and on. Right? And then we had the Meraglim, catastrophe. And now Korach is ready to pounce with his rebellion. Because, when things are going well, then the naysayers can't really speak up. But we're familiar with the idea. What have you done for me today? Right? The past is irrelevant. What have you done for me today? And at this point, Moshe is in a vulnerable position, as they are going to say, you said you're going to take us out of the land of Egypt to bring us to a land flowing with milk and honey. But at this point, because of the sin of the Meraglim, no fault of Moshe, but because of the sin of the Meraglim, none of them are going to make it to the land of flowing with milk and honey. None of them are going to be making it to the land of Israel. All of the adults who cried over the report of Israel are not going to make it to Israel. They're going to die in the Midbar. And this was not the deal, Korach claims. And now Korach starts a rebellion of malcontents, pulling together others who are malcontents and coming on to Moshe and Aaron saying, right, why are you guys the leaders? Let's hear what they say. Marty, want to take it for us in the Hebrew? Take psukim 1, 2, and 3.
ויקח קורח בן יזכר בן קהת בן לוי ודתן ואבירם בני אליאב ואין בן פלט בני ראובן. ויקח לפני משה לאנשים מבני ישראל 50 ומאותם נשמע 200 נשאי עדה וקראה מאוד אנשי שם.
Okay, let's pause there and let's take the English on that. Someone take that in the English, please.
Verse 3.
Verse 1 and 2.
Oh,
Meaning,
Korach, son of Ischar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, separated himself with Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, the offspring of Irvine. They stood before Moshe with 250 men from the children of Israel, leaders of the assembly, those summoned for meeting, men of renown.
good. Okay, Pasuk Gimel now in Hebrew first, then in English. Vayikalu al Moshe al Aaron, and they gathered against Moshe and Aaron, and said to them, Vayom alehem Rav lachem, enough of you. You've taken enough for yourselves. Ki kol haida kulam kedoshim. The entire congregation is holy. Uvetocham Hashem, and God is in their midst. Umadua titnasu akal Hashem. So why do you raise yourselves up over the congregation of God? So their point, we've all read George Orwell's Animal Farm, right? Everyone is holy. Everyone is holy. Why do we need to have you as the leaders? Now, of course, what Korach is going to suggest is that he should be the leader, right? All animals are equal, but the pigs are a little bit more equal than the others, right? That was our Animal Farm classic, right? But what he is promoting to them is, right? Why should you be leaders? Everyone is holy. I loved reading about the former Soviet Union, how they're all comrades, everyone is equal, except the top of the Communist Party. They have their dachshals, whatever they're called. They have their special privileges and their special stores and their special houses and their special neighborhoods and all their special privileges, but everyone is equal. I remember I was living in Israel during the time that the whole Soviet Union was falling apart, and the leader of Romania was Ceausescu. And soon after Ceausescu's fall, right, removal from power, so there was an interview that he had, and the interviewer said to him, "I understand that you're grooming your son to be your successor." And he said, "My son is a comrade like all other comrades, and we'll see which comrade will rise to power. But we're all comrades." And when they threw him out of power, they found that he had literally, the plumbing in his house was gold, literal gold plumbing in his house. When he flushed his toilet, it went through gold pipes. So Korach is the precursor of that. Kulam kedoshim. Everyone is holy. Everyone is holy. So why are you lifting yourselves up over everyone else? Let's see who these malcontents are. There's Korach. Korach now was the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kahat, the son of Levi. Kahat, his grandfather, had 4 sons. The oldest was Amram, who was the father of both Moshe and Aaron. The second in line was Yitzhar, was Yitzhar. Okay? Kahat's second son was Yitzhar. Now, Moshe is the leader. Aaron is the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. And then the Nasi, the leader of the tribe, Korach felt that should have been me, because I am the oldest son of the second son of Kahat, Yitzhar. And Moshe instead gave that Nisiut, that leadership position, he gave it to the son of one of the younger brothers. So Korach feels, I should be in charge. I can do a better job. And that's what started this whole major machloket. And soon we'll go into the names, Ben Yitzhar, Ben Kahat, Ben Levi. Datan and Aviram, we know about them. When have Datan and Aviram appeared previously in the Torah? Not necessarily by name, but our sages say, oh, who are those two troublemakers? Datan and Aviram. Who are the ones who are stirring things up? Datan and Aviram. Any examples that we have that you can give me, my friends? So very early in the Moshe career, right, he saw an Egyptian mercilessly beating a Jew almost to death, and he kills the Egyptian to save the life of the Jew. Then he sees two Jews arguing, and he says, Russia, why do you hit your friend? And they say to him, are you going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian? Moshe then knows, word is out. Not only is word out, but we have loose lips over here. We have Lashon Hara. We have those who will spread it. And word did spread, and Moshe needed to run for his life. Who are these two who were fighting? None other than Datan and Aviram. Moshe comes back. Moshe comes back decades later in order to bring us out of Egypt. And initially, instead of things getting better, things get worse. And Paro says the same amount of straw must be, or the same amount of bricks must be made, but you will not get the straw. And again, right, they attack Moshe, and I believe, back on page 316, and they encountered Moshe, verse 20 there, as they left Paro, as they left the house of Paro, they said to him, God should see and judge that you have made our very scent disgusting in the eyes of Paro and his servants. You've given them a sword to murder us. Who is that? That was Datan and Aviram again. When it came to collecting the man, right, going out to collect the man, or bringing in too much man to have enough for the next day, that was Datan and Aviram. They are the perennial malcontents. And right, certain places, it's sad. You feel for these people. You feel for them for living in the world that they live in. Because wherever they look, it's no good. It's no good. It's no good. And we're all living in the same world, and it looks pretty good to us. But I feel bad for those people that to them, it never looks good. That's Datan and Aviram. And therefore, they were always out against Moshe and Aaron. And therefore, if Korach needs others who are going to join him in his machloket, Datan and Aviram are prime candidates. And On ben Pelet, B'nai Reuven, interesting. We're emphasizing that they are the sons of Reuven. Why is that significant? Just 1 second. Why is it significant that they are the sons of Reuven? So on one hand, that I don't expect you to know, the other one you can figure out. But on one explanation is that their encampment, Ruvain, the encampment of Ruvain was next to the encampment of Kahat, of where Korach was. So we have an expression, Oy l'Rasha, Oy l'Shcheno. Woe to the evil one, woe to the neighbor. Meaning that there's an influence that rubs off on us from the environment that we are in. So the tribe of Reuven, in the formation around the ark as they would travel through the Midbar, the formation had Reuven next to Kahat. Oy l'Rasha, oy l'Shcheno. There was a tremendous sage by the name of the Rogatchover. He was known as an Eloi. He was brilliant. But he was known to be a bit wild. And if he was learning Gemara, and Tosfos, one of the commentaries, asked a question or gave an answer, and he didn't like it, the story I heard was he would tear out that Tosfos. He would tear it off the page. So they said to him, but there's also right, every page of the Gemara has two sides. So you don't like what Tosfos says on this side, but when you're tearing it out, you're tearing off the Tosfot on the other side also. So what did the Tosfot on the other side do wrong? Why are you tearing that out? And he said, Oy l'Rasha, oy l'Shcheno. Woe to the evil one, woe to his neighbor. Okay, so one explanation is because they were in close proximity. But why might the descendants of Reuven be somewhat ripe for a rebellion?
Could it have been they were leaders and leaders of their tribes as well?
Okay, right, but every tribe had its leaders. Kathy, what were you about to say?
Due to the sin of their father Reuben, they lost their firstborn status in a lot of ways. So with Reuben no longer having that firstborn status, they've kind of been shifted over as well.
Exactly. Jenny?
Well, I thought maybe because they were the sons of Leah. Did that have something to do with it?
Well, yes, and that actually ties into what Kathy was saying.
Yeah.
Meaning they were the sons of Leah, who were the firstborn, and they were the firstborn son of Leah, who was the firstborn son of Jacob.
Yes.
But any firstborn rights were taken away from Reuven. Royalty went to son number 4, Judah, Yehuda. The spiritual leadership, Kohanim, Leviim, the third son, Levi. And Yosef, which was Yaakov's 11th son, but the first son from Rachel. So he's the one who himself became a father of tribes. Reuven was left with no vestige of his being the firstborn. So therefore, the sons of Reuven, the descendants of Reuven, had, as Kathy and Jenny said, a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. We are the firstborn son of Leah, and we've got nothing. So they too, and again, this is not news. These are not new things that have happened. But what often happens is it festers inside, right? We've discussed the idea of nekama, of natira. Nekama is taking revenge. Natira is not acting on it, but it's festering inside. That anger, that sense of I've been cheated, that corrosive sense just works away inside, right? And then ultimately, eventually, what happens is it will come out. And over here, like I said before, once Moshe was in this vulnerable, sorry about that, position, that he was no longer going to be leading this generation into the land of Israel. None of them were going to Israel. So now they all pounced. The 250 other leaders, right? 250 men, leaders of the assembly, summoned for a meeting, men of renown, they were all Bechors. Ladera, we had this morning in the first class. What's a Bechor?
Firstborn.
Firstborn. Okay. Right. We just had that in the Gemara class that Ladera and I had this morning. Right. So as firstborns, why were they ripe to join in this rebellion over here? Before the sin, yeah, Marta?
Because of a sense of privilege, a sense of them knowing.
Yes, but there really is a well-founded sense of privilege. Before the sin of the golden calf, then there was not going to be Kohanim and Leviim. Marta, is Melvin a firstborn? Oh, so Melvin is a Kohen, but he's not a firstborn. The service would not have been performed by Melvin. It was not Kohanim and Leviim. It was the Bechors, it was the firstborn who were supposed to be the leaders. But because of the sin of the spiritual leaders, those who would serve in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, in the Beit HaMikdash, in the temple, but because of the sin of the golden calf, they were demoted. And instead, the Kohanim and the Leviim are the ones that serve. Actually, there's a halacha that before the Kohanim go up to give their priestly blessing, their hands are washed. And it's a Levi who will wash their hands. If there is no Levi in the shul to wash their hands, then a Bechor Peterechem, it's a firstborn child, a Bechor who's the one who's supposed to go and wash the hands of the Kohen. The Bechor had that position, and they lost it. And therefore, they too were ripe to jump forward and to join this machloket. Let's look for a moment at this word machloket, which means dispute, resurrection, rebellion. What is the shoresh? What is the root of the word machloket? Well, first of all, the opposite of machloket is shalom, peace, right? Disputes, peace, right? They're running after Aaron. They are pursuing Aaron. Aaron, who was the epitome of Ohev Shalom, Rodev Shalom. Aaron was a lover of peace, one who pursued peace, and they're going after him. They're going after Aaron, going after Moshe. They're going for the jugular over here. What is the shoresh? What is the root? Which three? Usually in Hebrew we have three root letters. Machloket, mem, written mem, chet, lamid, vav, kuf, taf. What is the shoresh, the root of the word machloket?
But I had a question about that. Is a machloket, it doesn't have to be something that's negative.
Correct. The correct.
Yeah.
The Mishnah in Avot speaks about a machloket l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, and that was Hillel and Shammai, where they each were trying to find the truth. And we can disagree, but if we each are trying to find the truth, that's a machloket l'shem shamayim. I think this is the truth. You think that's the truth. Well, I want to hear what you have to say, and you want to hear what I have to say. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe you're right. Let me hear your perspective. You want to hear my perspective. Actually, we say, and that was Hillel and Shammai, trying to understand the truth of whichever Torah point they were debating. And that's why there was complete camaraderie between Hillel and Shammai, even though they ruled differently in different cases. But Hillel families married Shammai communities married Shammai communities, right? And there was no ill will whatsoever. And actually, we generally rule like Beit Hillel because they would always first quote the opinion of Shammai before they would quote their own opinion. But it wasn't just a matter of order. If they're quoting that opinion, it means they hear that, they understand what the other one is saying. You know, a method when dealing with a couple that is struggling with their relationship. So when the couple sits down, you don't have each one say their side. You have each one present how the other one is feeling, to try to help them get into the head of the other one. This is how I feel, but how is she or how is he feeling this? How are they perceiving that? And it can be very powerful when each one explains how the other one is feeling. Sometimes this light bulb goes off and says, oh, I get it. I get it somewhat now, right? The key is to see it from the other's perspective. That's a machloket l'shem shamayim, right? And the Mishnah goes on to say, a machloket that's not l'shem shamayim is Korach va'adato. Korach and his clan. Now, at first we said, by l'shem shamayim, we mentioned Shammai and Hillel. We mentioned the two sides. When it's not l'shem shamayim, we don't mention Korach and Moshe. We just mentioned Korach and his congregation. Why is that? Why don't we say l'shem shamayim for the sake of heaven? That was Hillel and Shammai. Not for the sake of heaven. That was this machloket of Korach and Moshe. Why are we leaving Moshe out over here? Why is it Korach and his group?
It wasn't for Shamayim, it was for himself.
Yeah. Moshe was the Shem Shamayim. Moshe tries to make peace. Moshe summons them. Moshe goes to them. Moshe goes to them. I actually, one year on Yom Kippur, there was someone that I and that individual had clashed. And then I realized that I hadn't spoken to that person before Yom Kippur, just to make sure that we were okay. To apologize for my part. If they would apologize for their part, that was up to them. But I wanted to apologize for my part. And then it's Yom Kippur, and I realized, it was a hot Yom Kippur. And then we had about a 40-minute break, and I rushed over to that person's house to wish them a good Yom Kippur, and just to ask them, make sure that we were okay. You know, sometimes you have to make the extra effort. You don't wait for them to come to you. You make the extra effort, you go to them. Moshe did all of that. So Moshe would not be included in the not l'shem shamayim, right? It was Korach and Anato. So that is correct, Jenny. But usually machloket goes bad, right? It's hard to find the machloket l'shem shamayim. That's truly for the sake of heaven. Even when we feel that we're for the sake of heaven, very often it's our own personal concerns that play a role. One of the classic stories that Rabbi Pesach Krohn tells in his Maggid series is of a wealthy person, that a person came to him, this wealthy person, to borrow money. And this borrower had a terrible history. of borrowing and not paying back and borrowing and not paying back, and therefore no one's going to lend him money. And this person pleaded with the wealthy person, please, I realize, right, I 100% guarantee I will pay you back by this and this date, no matter what, right? And the wealthy person felt bad, and he lent him the money. The due date came and went. Doesn't hear a word from this guy. He calls him, the guy is, I think it's called ghosting him. Is that the term that we use nowadays? Right? The guy's not returning any calls and not returning any messages. Right? They go to Beit Din. He takes him to Beit Din. This guy then, right? There was no documentation. Very, very poor choice of the lender. There was no formal documentation of the loan. So the halacha then is the person holds a Sefer Torah and swears that he doesn't owe the money. This guy picked up a Sefer Torah, swore that he doesn't owe the money, and walked out. The rich guy was beside himself, and he says, I don't care about the money. The money, who cares about the money? How can he hold a Sefer Torah and swear falsely? And he was irate, talking to everyone, telling everyone, the money, I don't care about the money, but how can the person have the audacity to hold a Sefer Torah and swear falsely? And then years went by and the matter was forgotten. 5, 6, 7, 10 years later, the wealthy man comes into the shul, knocks on the table and said, I want to ask forgiveness from, and he names the borrower. I was wrong to speak about him the way that I spoke. Everyone's wondering, what happened over here? Did the guy not really owe the money? What happened? And they went and spoke to him. And he explained, I traveled a lot on business. And in my travels, I went to a certain city and I had a few hours extra. So I went to the Beit Din there to see the proceedings. And I walked in and the exact same case was going on. A wealthy person had lent a poor person money. The poor person was denying it. And he held the Sefer Torah and he swore they didn't owe the money and he walked out. And it didn't bother me. And I realized that the whole big thing, I don't care about the money. It's just, how could he hold the Sefer Torah? Well, here it wasn't my money, and it was a Sefer Torah, and it didn't bother me. So I realized that I was wrong. I was lying. I thought it wasn't the money, it was a Sefer Torah. But when it's for the sake of heaven, it's very, very hard to disentangle one's own personal concerns and feelings from what's actually going on. So, Jenny, you are right. There is l'shem shamayim, but those are Shammai and Hillel caliber. It's not that common. Usually machloket, right, comes with some shlo l'shem shamayim. So again, what is the shoresh? What is the root of the word machloket? You're muted, Marta.
Sorry, mem chet lamed?
No, the mem is not the shoresh.
Kuf Hey Lamed?
Beth chet lamed kuf.
Oh.
Chet lamed kuf.
Chet lamed kuf, which is chelek. What is a chelek? A part of.
A section, yeah.
A section. Right? Ezehu Ashir, we say in Ethics of the Fathers, who is a wealthy person? Hasameach, one who is happy, bechelko, with the portion that they have. This past Sunday we had the unveiling for David Room's father, for Howard Room of blessed memory. And David said something from his father that struck a chord. His father said the key to happiness is to want what you have. To want what you have. right? You can't always have what you want. To quote an old song, you can't always have what you want, but you can want what you have. If you want what you have, you're happy. Pirkei Avos sameach, you're happy with your chelek, with your portion. But portion, even in English, portion comes from part, right? It's not no one has everything.
But Rabbi, is that not human nature? People always want more than they, not want more, but people always want. People want.
Yes, and that's the key to unhappiness. Yes, yes, right? Hashem made us that we always want more. The proper focus of that is to always want more spirituality, to always want more godliness, to always want more of that which is real. And then the counterfeit is, I always want more wallet. I always want more things. I always want more stuff. Right? That's yeah. So a chelek is a portion. And everyone has part. No one has it all. Right? The classic is Haman. Haman, who had all the power and all the wealth that you could imagine, but said, Kol ze eino shavali. All this is worth nothing to me when I see Mordechai the Yehudi, Mordechai the Jew, not bowing down to me. That when you, no matter what you have, if there's something that you don't have, you focus on that, and I'm depressed. I'm morose. I'm so angry because I don't have that. That is machloket. Machloket is focusing on the chelek that I have and not appreciating what I have. The opposite of machloket is shalom, peace. What is the root of the word shalom? Shin lamed mem, which means shalem, complete, whole. The blessing that we say every morning is sha'asali kol tzarchi. God, you have done for me all of my needs. Everything that I need, I have. Not everything that I think I need, not everything that I want, but everything that God determines that I need, that I have. When Yaakov meets up with Esav and sends him the massive gift, Esav says, Yesh li rav. I've got a lot. I've got much. Now, no matter how much one has, there's always room for some more. Esav says, Yesh li rav. I've got much. Therefore, my brother, keep that which is yours. Yaakov's response is, Yesh li kol. I've got everything. Please take the gift. And in our Birkat HaMazon, in our benching, in our grace after meals, we say, Commotion is Baruchu Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the way you blessed our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Bakol, Mikol, Kol, with all, of all, alls, with a sense of call, of all, Ken Yavarech Osanu, so too bless us. For that blessing, we can never have all. The blessing is also that we should be able to guide our thinking, train our minds to focus on that which we do have. Not to focus on the chelek, but to recognize sha'asali kol sarki. God has done for me all of my needs. And that's what they use the word rav lachem. You've taken too much, they said. They were focusing on that which they did not have. Now let's double back for a moment to that very first pasuk. Korach the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kahat, the son of Levi. Who was Levi the son of? Yaakov, Jacob. Okay? We're going up 4 generations. Korach, Yitzhar, Kahat. We're going up 3 generations besides Korach. That's unusual. And if we're going up so many generations to his father, grandfather, great-grandfather, why don't we also go all the way up to his great-great-grandfather, Jacob, Yaakov? But we learned before that Yaakov, when he's giving the blessings, you want to take a quick look in Vayechi, back in Bereshit. This is page 276. Bereshit Perek Mem Tet, Pasuk Vav, Hey and Vav. When Yaakov is giving the blessings to each of his sons prior to his death, the very end of Bereshit, page 277, verse 5, Shimon and Levi are comrades. Their weaponry is a stolen craft. Into their conspiracy may my soul not enter. With their congregation do not join. Bikahalam al techad kavodi. That is a reference to the kahal, the congregation of Korach. Don't mention my name. Don't implicate me in this whole rebellion of Korach. That's what he asked for. That was his almost tefillah, his almost prayer over there. Don't include me in this congregation of Korach. And in fact, we see on 820 in our parsha this week, he was not included. Korach, the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kahat, the son of Levi. We don't say the son of Yaakov. Now, when a name is mentioned, the Gemara Megillah, the Talmud points out, when we mention a person's name and his father, if the person is a tzaddik, it means he got some of this righteousness from the father. If the person is not a tzaddik, a rasha in this case, it means he got some of it from those generations that are mentioned. Yaakov was afraid. What machloket, or what rebellion, or what upending of the normal order was Yaakov involved with in his life? I would say quite a few. Help me out over here.
With Esav?
Number 1, thank you, Jenny. Who was the Bechor? Who was the older? Esav was the Bechor. Who did Yitzchak, not knowing that Esav had sold the Bechor, but who did Yitzchak want to give the bracha to? To Esav. Yaakov, procured the bracha from Esav, the Bechorah, from Esav, and he represented himself to Yitzchak, to his father Isaac, as his being Esav. So therefore, he was involved in an upending of the leadership. When else was he involved in an upending of the natural leadership? We mentioned it before. We mentioned.
Yeah. It was with the natural order of the sons.
Yeah, with Reuven.
Reuven, yeah.
Right, Reuven. Right, they joined together with Korach because Yaakov again had upended the normal. Reuven was the firstborn. Kochi v'reshit oni, my first strength. He was upended. And instead, I mentioned before, Yehuda became the king, Judah became the king, Levi became the Kohanim and Leviim, the priests. And Yosef had 2 tribes. Yosef became a father of tribes. What were his sons' names? Menashe was the older one, Ephraim is the younger one. And when they came to Yaakov for a blessing, what did he do? He switched his arms. He placed his right hand on the younger one. And when we give a blessing to our children, Yisimcha Elokim ke'Ephraim v'kim Menashe. We mentioned the younger, Yaakov again upended it. And therefore, Yaakov was concerned. If my name is mentioned over here, when it comes to Korach, it means chip off the old block. Where did he get it from? Of course he's going to be I think the term we use now is a disruptor. Of course he's going to be a disruptor. He comes from a long line of disruptors, of wrongful, misguided disruptors. Yaakov said, Hashem, don't include me. Meaning, what I did l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. I follow the prophecy of my mother that she told me. I understood Esav was not the one to receive these blessings. Reuven had forfeited it. Ephraim will be greater than Menashe. I wasn't doing it. I was doing it. It was l'shem shamayim. As we said before, few and far between. But Yaakov was 3 for 3 l'shem shamayim. Therefore, don't include me. And he wasn't included, because he, in fact, was l'shem shamayim. Levi was a disruptor, not so l'shem shamayim. Where do we find that? Going back to the verses we had before, when Yaakov was giving the brachos to the children, what does he say? Shimon and Levi, our comrades, their weaponry, for in their rage they murdered people. At their whim, they ikru shore. They tried to uproot the shore, the ox. So Shimon and Levi, hey, Jacob, good to see you. Welcome to Irvine. Looking forward to seeing you in person.
Good morning. It's great seeing you.
Good to see you. Young man, you graduated, right? Congratulations. Beautiful. Beautiful. So Shimon and Levi, they pounced on the city of Shechem. They wiped out the city of Shechem for the capture and the violation of their daughter Dinah. But there's something else that they did. Who else did they gang up on? Who else did they conspire against? Kathy, I didn't hear you, but I think you said Yosef, right? Yeah, Yosef. When Yosef is coming to check on his brothers, the pasuk says, "Vayomer ish el achiv." One said to his brother. Now there were 10 brothers there. Who's doing the talking? It just says one to his brother, but our sages do a little detective work, and they say it was Shimon and Levi. How do they know that? Well, the sons of the maidservants, meaning Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher, are not going to tell their older brothers, the sons of Rachel, of Leah, what to do to the child of Rachel. So those 4 are not going to speak. Yisachar and Zvulun, 2 sons of Leah, were the youngest ones. Hello, London. How are you? So good to see you, sweetheart. So good to see you, sweetheart. So Yisachar and Zvulun, the younger brothers, are not going to speak up in front of their older brothers. Reuven wanted to save Yosef. Yehuda had a different plan of not killing him. So who does that leave? Process of elimination? Shimon and Levi. They were involved. in a machloket. Ben Yitzhar, Ben Kahat. Why are Yitzhar and Kahat mentioned? Yitzhar is mentioned, like I said before. His beef was Yitzhar, my father, is the second oldest son of Kahat. So I understand Amram, the oldest, Moshe and Aaron. But how about the other? Right? The next position should have gone to me. It shouldn't have gone to my cousin Elitzaphan. Kahat, of the three sons of Levi who were all involved in the transport, Kahat had the loftiest position. Others were carrying the beams or carrying the drapes. What was Kahat carrying? They didn't get a wagon. They didn't get wagons to carry. They would carry on their shoulders. They carried the holiest of the holiest of the Kalim. Actually, Korach was the one who was carrying the ark. He felt, I'm at the top over here. I'm at the top over here. And I've been passed over. Moshe and Aaron, right? Rav Lachem, they said to them, Rav Lachem, you've taken too much, Pasuk Gimel. They said to Moshe and Aaron. Moshe, verse 4, what does he do? He starts to pray. Verse 5, what does he do? He speaks to Korach. And he says, let's see who Hashem chooses. And he gives us idea of the fire pans everyone will offer. But then he goes and tries to calm the situation down. Right? Go to page 824. Right? Just 1 second. I missed it. 1 second. Moshe says, I'm sorry, 822, the end of verse 7, Rav Lachem b'nei Levi, you sons of Levi, you have very important portion, very important positions. Focus on what you have. Moshe said to Korach, listen, right, is it not enough, verse 9, that God separated you from all the congregation to serve in the Mishkan, to stand before the congregation to serve, and now you also want kahuna, right? Why are you arguing against Aaron? Right? Pasuk 12, Moshe sent to call Datan and Aviram, right, to try to make peace there. And they said, Lo na'aleh, we're not coming. Right? You took us out of a land flowing with milk and honey, verse 13, to kill us in the midbar. You took us out of a land flowing with milk and honey. Once we get into that mindset of anger, of being, of I've been wronged, I've been cheated, then everything gets all skewed. And over here, all of a sudden, Egypt is flowing with milk and honey, right? And that brings about their demise. Their demise. That is where machloket leads us, right? When we focus on what we don't have, that is the road to depression, the road to, even if it's not going to be, clinically depressed, that is the path to an unhappy life, an unhappy world that a person is placing themselves in. Machloket chelek shalom is shalem. We need to do whatever we can. And when we feel we're doing it l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, be careful. Be very, very careful. Because very often l'shem shamayim is not so l'shem shamayim. And Aaron, who was the Oev Shalom, Rodev Shalom, often it's those people who get pursued, right? We have Cain and Hevel, right? Cain and Abel. Like I always say, what we see here is a small part of the whole picture. And we need to focus on Sha'asa li kol tzarki. how Hashem has done for us all that we have. All that we have is all that we need. Right? Actually, the song continues. You can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you find you get what you need. That we believe is divinely orchestrated. That we get what we need. And again, this is continuing with the missteps of Bamidbar until we're able to right the ship once again. Please God. Okay, my friends, we'll call it over here. Good seeing you all. Thank you for joining. And on Thursday, we'll be continuing the part 2 of the history. There's actually 3 parts, but this is 1A and this is going to be 1B. The part 1 is the history, and we're up to 1B of the history of anti-Semitism. And then we're going to, part 2 will be the different causes that it's attributed to, and how most of those attributions do not actually hold water. And then we'll go to actual cause and remedies that we have for this scourge that exists in the world. Okay, my friends, be well. Look forward to seeing you soon. And a Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov.
What's up? Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.